Welcome to SethCraft. I'm building a 20 by 30 shop down here in this space, and it's time to install the footers. I'm going to be using 4x4 skids to put my joists on top of, and those 4x4 skids have a maximum span of 7.5 feet. So I'm going to be putting my footers every 5 foot along this build, which means I have to have a total of 35 footers. It's going to be a lot of digging and a lot of pouring concrete. In a previous video, I set up the batter boards to find the corners of my building and also get a level line around the full perimeter. In the video after that, I got these guidelines set up for the 3 middle columns of my footers. And so now it's time to start digging these footers. I'm going to be using a capstone or concrete block that is 4 inches tall, 8 inch by 16 inch. And so I need to make sure my footers are a little bit bigger than that so that I have a little bit of room to work around with in case I have to scoot them in one direction so that those skids will sit on top of. So let's go ahead and move to the first corner and start working with the footers. I'm going to go ahead and put my tape measure back here on this original corner post and run this tape measure out so that I can mark all of the places for the footers going from left to right here on the building. So 5 foot, 10 foot, 15 foot, etc. Right here is the 5 foot mark. So I'm going to go ahead and make a place in the dirt right there. And now this footer is going to go over 8 inches in both directions. All right, so that's the size of the footer block right there. Now if I come back out another 2 inches, so right there and about right here, that's how big I want to dig my footer space. This line right here is the edge of the building, so I want to make sure that I also move back over here a little bit. Let's say about 2 to 3 inches to dig down there. And then over here, I need to make sure I have enough space as well. So essentially, that's where I'm going to dig up this footer and pour my concrete down there. The frost line is very important to consider whenever you are digging your footers. In my area, it's only about 6 inches. So I need to dig down 10 inches to a foot below that. So if I dig this somewhere around 16 to 18 inches deep, then I will be good to go on my footer. Now that I have the placement for my first footer, I'm going to move over here to the 10 foot mark, and I'm going to repeat that same process. Make a center mark, come out an extra 2 inches past where that paver stone is going to be, mark there, mark right there, and then make the parameter for that as well. I'm going to move down the line and make sure I have all 7 of these cut in here on my string line. I have the 6 footers marked out going down the row here. Now it's time to remove the original corner here, so I can wiggle this stake back and forth a little bit and then hopefully pull this back out. Very good. Now I can use that whole reference there to now dig my new footers. So I want to come back about 4 inches over here because right here is going to be the corner of the building, and so I want to make sure I have a little extra room on the outside. So got about 4 inches this way, and then I need to have 2 or 3 or 4 inches this way to make sure I have plenty of room. Now of course it's easier to dig the hole a little bit wider, but once it's been made wide, it's hard to undo that. You just have to fill it up with more concrete, so just keep that in mind. All right, there we go. And that is where we're going to dig for this footer as well. For an example, here is the 8 by 16 block. And you can see I've got about 2 or 3 inches available space on all sides, so I can wiggle this around if I need to. I'm going to need the string line to make level later, so I'm just going to use a stake to get this pulled out of the way a little bit. And now I can use my post hole diggers to dig down. Now I've got some pretty serious red clay dirt here, as you can tell, and this is not going to be an easy dig, but let's go ahead and get started. If you've got a machine to do this for you, that would be pretty awesome. But for me, it's just going to be a lot of this right here. I've got a wheelbarrow set up where I can capture the dirt and haul this somewhere else. I'm actually finding it easier to break up the hole with the post hole diggers and then grab the old shovel and just scoop that dirt out. I'm going to be using 80-pound bags of concrete. This is just your typical high strength bag. You could always use the higher strength if you want, the 4,000 or 5,000 psi, whatever it is, but for this application it's going to be just fine. Sadly, my wheelbarrow has lots of holes in the bottom of it, so I'm just going to be using this little barrel cut in half as my mixing tote here. I've also got my ram pump in the creek feeding water to a tank. So this is creek water, but it will also work just fine. The first bag of concrete is mixed and ready to go into the ground here. It's likely to take about 2 bags per hole, I imagine. All right, let me mix up the next bag. All right, bag number 2 has been mixed up. See how we do here. All right, well, looks like I probably honestly could use a little bit more here, but I think I'm going to stop with 2 bags. So what I'm doing now is kind of like running a bull float. I'm just leveling this out. So what I'm going to do is let this sit for a couple of hours, and then I will come back with some water and spray it a little bit just to keep it a little bit wet on top. But that will be our footer. So now basically I will take one of my capstone blocks like this whenever that concrete is dry enough and ready, and I will set this right here on top. Now I think for the future I'm going to cut down my size of the hole by 1 inch on all sides. So for example, if I pick this up, you can see it's got too much room left and right. So I will bring that down so it's just about 16 by 16. Because like I said before, as long as I have enough room in there, at the middle point is here for the 10-foot pieces, then I'll have plenty of room for that 4x4 to sit on. So anyhow, there's the first one, all done. As you can see, getting all these footers dug and poured with concrete is going to take some time doing this alone. It probably would be beneficial for me to rent a concrete mixer, and I may end up doing that, we'll see. If not, I'm going to do this by hand, and I will bring you back once I have this first row done, and we will move over to the next row. I completed the first 7 footers on that original far side over there. I also moved into the next row and finished those up as well. The next step is to do the middle of the building, and to do that I'm going to set out my tape measure so I can see the 5-foot increments from 0 to 30, and then we're going to actually be using one of the paver stones under the line to mark out where that footer needs to be. So let's step into that real quick. This string here is going across the front of the building, and this one's going from front to back. So what I want to do is take one of my paver stones, such as this one right here, and I want to line up in the middle of this cross piece and have about 2 or 3 inches on this side. I think right here about 2 inches should be more than enough. Okay, and so the 4x4 will basically stop right here and then continue that way, so there's going to be plenty of space. So what I want to do is take my shovel and just simply score the outside of this paver stone. Okay, now whenever I move this out of the way, that's where I want to dig. I can just move my string line to the side a little bit and begin digging in here. All right, and now I'm just going to dig that down to the appropriate depth there. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one before I finish digging this. I've got my tape measure, and I'm going to put the 0 mark here underneath the string. I'm going to stretch this out along my line. Looking right here is my 5-foot mark, so I'm going to take my shovel. I'm going to make a mark right here at 5 foot. And then once again, I can take my paver stone or capstone, and I'm just going to center that mark left and right, and then I want to center this on the line just like that, and then I'm going to score that around that block again. Okay, now when I remove this block, once again, that's where I want to dig. $80 pounds gets heavy after a while. I just wrapped up the last of the footers. It took me 3 days, but I got all 35 of them in. Now this side over here was a bit more of a challenge because there was a lot more fill dirt on this side. As you can see how the hill drops off over there. And so each of these I had to dig down almost 3 feet. And so it took a lot more concrete, but it's nice to have all of them done. All right, so now that I have these finished, the next step is going to be putting the cap blocks on here, and then I have to go through the fun task of leveling everything out. But at least I have a good foundation to work with. All of these have been padded down, so they should be flat to each other. I just have to make sure they are level from the high end to the low end. So this side over here is going to be close to a foot lower than the other side, which is good to have because you do want the water to drain off whenever you have a flat foundation like this. Footers like this, I had a big rock that I pulled up right here on this side, and so the concrete had to spill over a bit. I had a couple of those as I was doing this side over here. Now on the first ones, I did go a little bit larger than my paver stone, but I realized, you know what, I'm gonna have a 6 inches to work with on both sides from this end to that end with my 4x4, so I should not really have much of an issue because a block, a cap block, is going to be basically 4-inch tall by 8-inch by 16-inch, and so if I have room on either side to work with, I'm going to be fine. And so what I did was just started doing the footer here just the right size for one of those blocks to sit on, and not having to worry with all that extra space on the side and using up more concrete. Thank you so much for watching this video on installing footers for a 20 by 30 shop. If you're interested in seeing more videos on this build, then be sure to check out the links down below and subscribe, ring the notification bell so you will be updated on future videos. The next one is going to be all about leveling out those paver block and putting these skids on top of those. So be sure to check out that video. I'm Seth with the SethCraft Workshop, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.